I first want to talk about this book, The Working Mom Blueprint. I have to say, when I read the little, I mean, I don't know, the subtitle, Winning at Parenting Without Losing Yourself, I almost started tearing up. And that's where I guess I am right now in my parenting life. So can you talk to me a little bit about, I mean, it's your second book, but what was the inspiration behind it? What was the, the research, the writing process like, and how has it been received so far?
Absolutely. So, yeah, it's my second book. And the first book that I wrote was about how to take care of yourself in that first newborn period. Like, how do you not completely lose it when you're in the midst of like sleeplessness and trying to feed a baby and all of that? And that really in pediatrics is a huge focus for us. We care so much about that newborn period. But then I realized as I started talking to other moms in my pediatrics practice, like, what about all the time after that? What about your entire working experience if you're a working mom? Or, there's lots of moms that are at home that have unpaid work that they're doing, right? What about all those moms? And so after I had agreed with the American Academy of Pediatrics to write the first book, then they said, well, would you want to write a second book too? Because what we really want is to think about this idea of not just how do we help kids thrive as the American Academy of Pediatrics, but how do we help moms and families thrive so that kids can thrive? Like, we can't put the cart before the horse, so to speak. So I started talking with other working moms. I started talking with experts in the field, psychologists, with experts on screen time, on self-care. And then, of course, whenever you write a book with the American Academy of Pediatrics, you work extensively with their committees and policy stakeholders and all those types of things. And so we worked together to make sure that it had a lot of really tactical information about child development and about what's normal and what's really helpful for kids in terms of eating and in terms of exercise and sleep and parenting styles, all of that. And then, of course, I threw in my own flavor and all the things that I've learned at Modern Mommy Doc, talking with moms in the real world, because I did not want it to be like an ivory tower type of book. I really wanted it to be like, I'm in the trenches with you. And so let me get really real.
So speaking of the trenches, what is something that you're struggling with? I mean, because you wrote this amazing book, you're a mom of two, and you're a pediatrician. So from the outside looking in, it could seem like, okay, she's got it together. She is, so what are you struggling with right now?
Yeah, that's a good question. And here's the thing, if I can't be vulnerable with people, then I have like nothing to give. I really think that, Brene Brown, right? Vulnerability is like the biggest gift that we can give to ourselves and to other people. In the book, I talk a lot about my relationship with my husband and about struggles that we went through earlier on when we were trying to figure out what was happening with her. And I will say, my husband is a very social person, and my daughter McKenna, who is my oldest that I write about a ton in the book, she is too. And COVID took a toll on these little exuberant people who are super smart and who could not be duped by like niceties. Like, it's all going to be fine. It's going to be good. Don't worry. Just hold on. Like, both of them were like, this is horrible. The world's ending. Like, let's just call it, hard because, I don't always want to be the bubbly one. I don't always want to like carry the torch for our family. Sometimes I need respite. Sometimes I need like someone taking care of me. And really this year, I feel like, I've been like holding the family together. And so now that things are opening up a bit, I have really poured into like, I have to go to my exercise class that I love going to with other people. I have to take time to listen to the music that I love. I have to sit outside on the porch and put headphones in and like read a book or listen to a podcast that I love. So I think the struggle has just been making sure that I continue to show up for myself in a time when those around me, my patients, my partner, my kids just have like needed so much from me. Just remembering, if I don't have myself, I have nothing to give.
Yeah. And I mean, we talk a lot in my profession, and of course with your profession as well, we talk a lot about self-care, but lately I feel like it's just become this like buzzword, right? It's self-care, manis, pedis, massages. If that's what you like to do, then fine. But and then there's like, I don't know if you've seen these memes or these Instagram reels where it's like moms doing self-care, but they're really just doing like chores and just personal hygiene things that they have to do anyway.
Right. Right.
So I want to know, like, how can moms sort of advocate for themselves, first of all, even within their own families, for self-care? And then really just, I don't know, I mean, if it's, because obviously we all need it, but it's so hard to get ourselves to do it. So how do we do it?
Totally. Um, I think it comes down to finding out or being aware of what makes you feel the most alive and awake. Like those are the things that really care for your soul, right? So for me, like music is the thing that always makes me feel the most alive and awake. So self-care for me pre-COVID could be like going to a concert with my husband, right? And like being totally in that moment with him and connected. That's self-care. I love like really good food. So self-care could be like going out to dinner with a girlfriend. Um, I love movement. So self-care could be I'm like in my basement doing like a yoga thing, and not for exercise to fit into like a size zero, more for like, oh my gosh, that stretch feels so good on my body. Right. So those are the things that when I think about like, what would I do on my perfect day? If I had nothing else to do, no obligations, no kids, no husband, what would I choose to do? That's what I always come back to as like, that's what I need to integrate into my life over time. And, um, you know, in the book, because I feel like it's not enough to just say, just go do those things sometimes. Like I tried to be a little bit formulaic about it to say, you want to practice self-care, finding yourself, being awake, being alive enough times, returning to your passion, what brings you joy, that then you like remember how good it feels. And so that it's like it's filling up your cup like every day a little bit, as opposed to your cup like completely draining. And then you got to pour like a whole gallon and it's like overflowing and it's like way too much, right? I think that's what kind of makes this almost like bulimic or like yo-yo thing that happens with moms, where it's like deprive ourselves, self-sacrifice, give every single thing to our kids, give every single thing to our jobs. And then we're like, I'm empty, I'm miserable. And then we go do something that copes. There's a coping mechanism that's maybe not as healthy, right? We like overeat, or we like drink too much alcohol, or we binge watch Netflix for like 3 days in a row, or we explode at our kids and like say, I've had it, like I need to get out of here, right? Like the key for me is to have like micro doses of that self-care every single day. And I practice that by doing 5 minutes a day of some type of quiet time with myself, right? Like um, doing a guided meditation. And I'm horrible at thinking of what I should meditate on. So I do guided ones, like I use other people.
That's what I do too. I can't do it on my own. I need a guide.
Totally. Like, please teach, like that's probably why I need exercise classes too, right? Is because like I can't like sit there and like I'm horrible. If I'm by myself at home, the pandemic was ridiculous for me because I'd be like looking at my phone while the person's on the screen trying to talk to me. I got to be in a dark room where they basically lock me in and like turn all the lights off and just say like, just listen to this. So yes, like 5 minutes of meditation, 5 minutes of journaling, 5 minutes where you tell your partner or your kids, if you don't have a partner, like I'm locking the door. This is mommy's special time where she's just going to be like by herself and let the water run on her for an extra 5 minutes, right? Listening again to your favorite song. Like it does not have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be intense. And then what I do in my own life and recommend is that people set aside on their schedule, on their calendar, 3 hours a week, 1 hour chunks, where it is that like larger amount of time where they get to like sink into what is the thing that brings me joy. And again, sitting on a porch reading a book, going out to dinner with a friend, like taking a walk around the block, right? Whatever it is, that's the thing that makes in nature, whatever it is the thing that kind of brings you back to you. And I've had, even from my own partners in my pediatrics group, a woman who told me like, I read about your thing. I read your blog. I know you said like you need to do self-care, blah, blah, blah. She's like, I don't have time for that. And I get that on the surface, but I think it's about, to me, like, it's kind of like for me saying, I don't have time to eat ever. Like, I'm
Right.
so busy. I don't have time to eat. If you think about self-care like it makes everything else easier and everything else better, then it's like that. It becomes one of those like basic functions of your life that has to happen for you to do well. And there are some weeks where things are crazy or I'm too overwhelmed or like I lose sight of my own framework and North Star, and I don't do any of that. And my body keeps the score and my mind keeps the score. So then I just take that as data and come back to it again. This isn't like you gotta be critical of yourself, but I do think we just have to be real about what are the things that actually work and what are the foundations we want to have in our lives.
Yeah, and this is also, I think, part of, kind of a bigger conversation about maybe maternal mental health. And I'm wondering
Mhm.
if you have a mother who's coming into your practice for the purpose of, a well checkup for for her kid or something like that, and you notice that they're struggling, what do you do? Like, is that something you even address, or and if so, I think also what I'm wondering is, because this is so needed, and I believe that this is so needed and not talked about as much, should this be something that more pediatricians are addressing when if they're noticing something might be off with a mom?
Yes, and I think a lot of people don't realize how focused actually pediatricians are on maternal mental health and us wanting to really hone in on that early on. So in my practice, we do at the 2-day visit, at the 2-week visit, and even all the way up to 6 months, a screener that looks for depression. But I think that's a starting point. Um, I also spend a lot of time with moms, just like taking a pause and saying, I know we talked about your baby. I also want to check in with you. And here's what this survey told me most of the time. The survey told me you're doing fine. But
Right.
is that true? Like, how are you really doing? Tell me, what are the things that are making you really worried? How are you doing with your mental health? How's it going with your partner? And a lot of times, the first time I asked that question, they looked at me like either this is none of your business or or I can't believe someone asked me that. But I really try to frame it in the light of I know that you're going to actually be able to breastfeed if that's your choice or if that works for you better if you're in a better state of mind. I know you're going to be able to handle sleep issues if you're in a better state of mind. I know you're going to be able to catch developmental delays if you're in a better state of mind. So this is about me taking care of your kid and taking care of you at the same time. And I honestly care just as much about you as I care about your child because I know you cannot separate the two things.
Right. Right. Oh my gosh. Even just hearing that makes me just feel like a sense of relief. My kids are 9 and 5, but I didn't get that kind of care from anybody really. And I had a high risk pregnancy. And so it didn't, yeah, like I just didn't get any of that afterwards. So just to hear that even 9 and 5 years later, it really is nice. And I think that we definitely do need more of that. But now, because, of your second book, The Working Mom Blueprint, a lot of moms, first of all, what happened to mothers, that's like a whole another conversation, what happened to moms in the workplace. But for those who are fortunate enough to keep a job, a lot of us are looking at going back if they haven't already. But even in my office, we're looking at maybe a September return to the office. Maybe it's like a hybrid model. But I'm wondering, like, what advice do you have if we're having like major anxiety about it? Some of us are excited to go back, but if there's like moms that might be struggling with severe anxiety of returning to the workplace. And I'll give you one example. One of my very best friends, her maternity leave was up March 2020. So
Mm.
although this is a horrific pandemic, she has now been able to stay home and raise her child while she was at work, for his whole, pretty much the first year of his life. But now that they're talking about returning to the office, there is a bit of anxiety around that, having to leave the baby for the first time. So, what do we do?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I think first things first, as working moms, we have to like accept and be okay with the idea that we like working. Like, I love working. I love my kids, and I would be a terrible stay-at-home mom. Like I am so in awe of stay-at-home moms because that is not me, right? So I think like we should own that we have something that we really want to contribute that's outside of our families and also to our own kids. And I think there's a ton of benefits to, both ways that you do things. There's no reason to have like division or wars around that. But I do think that working moms actually do give their kids a lot just by the fact that they are showing them the example of like working in teams and time management and all those types of things. So never feel like you're a less than mom, because you're doing an amazing job at parenting your kid if you are a working mom. And there's a ton of research actually around the fact that not being with your kids every single day, every single moment is actually not a horrible thing. I mean, there are a lot of studies that show really it's about the quality time that you spend with your kids as opposed to you being with them 24/7. So that's number one. Number two is when you're thinking about maybe my employer is asking me to go back to work, this is a great moment to ask for the flexibility that you need. I mean, never before has there been so much attention on this idea of we are humans, we are moms or dads, and we are employees, right? So this idea of having to be like, I'm just going to pretend like I'm not a mom and I'm not going to ask for anything that I need. I think we can start hopefully to throw that by the wayside. We have a long way to go, but I would say this is a moment to bring to your employer, listen, this is a way that would work for me in terms of flexibility, but then to also potentially bring a solution to your employer for how it might benefit them or for what would be like a workaround to their potential objections, right? For me, for example, I take my kids to school, and that's really important for me because I am the one that doesn't get flustered in the morning, and my kids have a better start to the day. When my husband takes them at the end of the day, they go like, Dad was really like irritated, and I know he loves them and he wasn't irritated. He's just like trying to get out the door and can't do it. So that's my skill. That's my strength. So I do it. And so when I started doing that though, to my employer, I said, listen, this is important to me. So I am willing to, on some days, work longer at the end of the day. I am willing to take a shorter lunch at some days so that then I can shift my schedule basically to accommodate this need that I have. And I'm on the executive leadership team at my work. I understand both sides, like as an employer and as an employee. And so I get that employers can't just be like, oh yeah, do whatever the heck you want. And at the same time, I think this is the moment, like ask for the flexibility. The second is with childcare, start now. Like if you are definitely have to go back to work, you're going to a place that has not realized there's going to be a war on talent and they're saying like, you better get back into the office 100%, everybody. Look for the childcare now, because generally speaking, professional childcare givers, they look for their employment pretty far in advance. So like when we hired a nanny, she said like, yep, I look 6 months ahead. If I'm planning on switching from a family, I'm looking there. So if you want someone that takes it seriously, that's the thing to do. Now, the other thing is in a pandemic, there's been a shortage of caregivers. So if you can't find your ideal person, the other thing you can do is do kind of a hybrid. Look for the person that you really want, start scoping that out, and then find an interim person and just know in your head, okay, this is going to be someone that's going to work for a little while. That's happened in our house tons of times where we said, this is fine for the moment. Our kids are safe. Our kids are being fed. It's cool. We're just going to do that for a little while. And in the book, we actually have a whole section, a whole chapter that's on childcare centers versus childcare givers within the home, about family taking care, and a whole table where you can do kind of pros and cons in each one for your family and figure out what are the things that are the most important for you when it comes to childcare givers.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I'm only like up to like chapter 2 because I just got the book and of course have no time, but I can't wait to tear through this thing because I was skimming it just now and it looks incredible. Final question. Tell us a little bit about the Modern Mommy Doc community. This website, you have an Instagram community. Tell us how you built that up and, what it means to you.
Yeah. So I really believe we can teach moms the way that will be easier for them in the long run. We can give them a framework, we can give them a North Star. But if we want moms to sustainably have a life that is more centered versus conflicted, we have to support them. They have to have other people around them there are so many haters out there, right? Even like extended family can be like haters where you're like, why am I having to explain to you that I have work to do today? Like, this is bizarre, you know? And so you need people around you that really get you, that understand you, that are on that same journey with you, that can lift you up. And so Modern Mommy Doc, we built it at first to be a podcast and a blog and the Instagram community. And then now we are evolving it. Actually, I'm really excited. Next month, we're evolving it to be a Modern Mamas Club. All of our on-demand programming that we have videos on demand that are about parenting in partnership with a spouse, with a partner, with whoever's in your parenting village. We have one on navigating kids' emotions. We have ones on being a new mom that goes through basically our entire first book. We have one on our signature conflicted to centered program and model. So we're having that, and then we're doing live events with experts who can come in and talk about specific topics within there, and then, you know, chats and forums and ways to get support. So we're really trying to dive into this idea of sustainability, accountability. How do you stay aligned over time?
I can't wait for that. I'm really excited for that. Thank you so much. Okay, so here's the book again, The Working Mom Blueprint, and tell us where we can find you and where we can get the book.
Yeah, so the book is available wherever books are sold, online, in bookstores, and you can find me at Modern Mommy Doc on Instagram or at modernmommydoc.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.